Okay, hello and good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today. So we're going to be speaking about the next generation of carbon credits. So we have a new project working with innovative methods and blockchain technologies. And yeah, we're really happy to be launching this today. So thank you for coming to join us. I can see the participants number is still rising. So I'll just give you a bit of background about myself. My name's Ash Farber. I'm the sourcing manager at Zero Emission. So I find all of the new projects that are coming in and do lots of reading and research on the different kinds of technologies and solutions that are coming up at the moment. And this is definitely one of the most exciting things that's on the market right now. So we'll be joined by Zero Emission's CEO, Henrik Julin, and then also by Matthias Olsen from Emerging Cooking Solutions, who's the brain and the developer behind this new cook stove project. So a bit of basic housekeeping that if you have any questions, please put all of your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat function. This just makes it a bit easier for us to be able to go through and sort the questions and be able to answer them properly in there. So with that being said, I can now hand over to Henrik Julin, Zero Emission's CEO, to give an introduction to Zero Emission and a bit more information about what we're going to hear today. Good morning, Henrik.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much, Ash. Yes, we're here today to talk about the next generation of carbon credits. And I will just share my screen. I've prepared a few slides. Let's see. There we
Excellent.
go.
Over to you. Thank you.
Hope you guys can see my screen. And good morning, everyone. Super happy to be here and that so many of you have decided to join us for this seminar this morning. As Ash said, we're really happy to do this launch with this really exciting new technology, a new kind of carbon credit that we will look at. And hopefully we'll make it worth it for all of you guys to check in this like early in the morning. And my name is Henrik. I'm CEO for Zero Emission. I would like to start to show you this graph, just to give you sort of an introduction to why we're all here. And I'm sure every one of you have seen this and are aware of this since before, but I still think it's a good reminder to sort of show. I borrowed this graph from NASA, and it's showing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And as you can see, the last 100 years, we have significantly exceeded the limits of, or the normal sort of conditions for CO2 in the atmosphere. And it really illustrates this graph why it's so important that we start taking action now to sort of do something about the situation in order to give future generations a chance to help the planet. And according to the IPCC, it is crucial that we do two things simultaneously to sort of solve this situation that we've gotten ourselves in. And it's number one, to drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere and stop burning fossil fuels. And then number two, to sequester a large amount of CO2 from the atmosphere in order to go back down to like sort of safe levels of CO2 in the atmosphere. And this is exactly what we do and focus on in Zero Emission. And so we help companies to do both of these things. And that's why we started, and we were founded in 2006, based in Stockholm. Today we're about 20 employees and serve roughly over 250 clients. And we're actively engaged in contributing to organizations such as the ISO, the ICC, and Science Based Target. And I'm very proud. Last year we sort of passed the milestone of having sold over 5 million tons of carbon credits. And we've helped to do over 1,000 climate assessments. So what we do in a nutshell, really quick, it can be summarized in 3 simple bullets. So we help companies to calculate and report their emissions. We help set targets and analyze and set a strategy on how to reduce the emissions. And lastly, we help companies to mitigate, take responsibility for the unabated emissions that they still have. And we do this through some of the some of the highest quality carbon credits that you can find in the world today. So that we're very proud of. But we're here to focus a little bit extra today on these clean cook stove technologies that we think will give well-needed both integrity and transparency to the market. But just to give you sort of a intro to what the cook stove projects, what it is and what it's about, I made a slide, and I want you to maybe emphasize a little bit extra on the headline that the need for clean cook stoves around the globe is enormous. About 2.4 billion people still cook on inefficient and highly polluting fuels. This leads to millions of premature deaths around the world. And giving access to efficient stoves can change not only help people cook with clean energy and reduce CO2 emissions, but it also, which is just as important, it also improves the health of the users. And it also frees up more time, especially for young women. And since it's mostly young or women in the families that both collect the firewood and are doing most of the cookings, these kind of programs also help with equality issues in these parts of the world. And lastly, it also helps biodiversity, since we save one of the largest main causes of deforestation today is firewood. So by saving firewood, we also protect forests and the biodiversity and the animals living in those forests. So the potential is enormous, and the need is enormous for both health and for the climate. So these projects are really doing something good. And and the market for carbon credits, it is a crucial tool in order to finance these stoves and make them accessible to these people, since they live in very poor areas and in rural areas, and without these financial support from carbon credits and these programs, they are not able to make the financial investment to purchase a stove, a clean stove like this. But there's a challenge to this, and that is that and something that we have seen a lot in these cook stove projects, that this is also something that we've seen in different studies. This particular study is from Berkeley University. It came out this fall, and it was picked up by both The Guardian and Financial Times, where they point out the flaws in these projects, and a lot of it is connected to poor monitoring and sort of overinflated estimates of the usage of these cook stoves. And that's it's a very unfortunate that this has happened and that projects still do this. because it not only creates a disbelief and uncertainty to these cookstove projects, but to the carbon market as a whole. When it's like more important than ever that we're actually investing in these projects, investors are actually backing out. So it's a real shame, and that's why we're so happy with the solution that Matthias is going to talk more about today. But I'll say a few words about it, because in the same Berkeley study, they also specifically point out that these Supermoto cookstove from emerging cooking solutions are in fact working, and that there are credits that can be trusted. And what's so unique and exciting about this project is that instead of estimating and doing calculation based on each distributed stove, you're actually measuring each and a single usage of the stove. And that's what you have used as a base for doing the calculation on the climate benefits. So, and also each usage, since it's registered in this blockchain, it's impossible to go back and sort of tamper or change anything with it. Like, it's locked in there, making it like 100% transparent and traceable. So I really think that this is sort of the new generation of carbon credits that we see in this technology. And yeah, it's a very welcome and positive change that we're very proud to be a part of here in Zero Emission, and to have this launch today. Just the last sort of key point that I would like to point out before handing over to Ash and Matthias is that, and just a comment on the price trends. And just as with any product or any service, if the price seems a little bit too good to be true, it probably is. And the prices for carbon credits vary a lot, and you can get credits for just a few dollars, and then you can get credits for hundreds of dollars. And what we're seeing specifically for cookstove, but also for the other technologies, is that prices has actually dropped during the last year. And this is because a lot of it is because of these studies where they actually pointed out how sort of the misconduct on some of these projects that are available in the market, and these low quality carbon credits, the prices has gone down because a decrease in demand. But at the same time, we've seen that there has been an increased demand for high quality credits, which is also made so that the people are willing to pay more for high quality credits and not risking their reputation on sort of bad quality. And this is something good, I think, or we think that this is a trend that we'll see a lot more of going forward, that the prices will actually increase overall in the market, and these like lower quality projects will actually be phased out, because to be honest, they don't really belong in this market. Carbon is not so cheap as you can like buy a ton for a few dollars. So it's a good development, and I think in a few years we will hopefully like don't see these kind of credits on the market anymore. And yes, that's what I wanted to show for now. I'll leave over to you, Ash. I'll stop my sharing.
Thank you very much, Henrik. And just listening to you there and the way that you talk, it seems like, you know, there's a lot of changes going on in the carbon market, that there's constructive criticism, there's identifying problems, and then kind of, okay, how can we deal with these solutions? Or, so, you know, deal with these problems and make new solutions. So just a thought from you on, you know, how do you see that over time? That, I mean, Zero Emissions almost 20 years old. the portfolio's changed in the last 20 years. Do you see it changing even more in the next 20 years, right? That there's so many more technologies, there's so many more new ways of doing things. How do you see that like innovation and different kind of solutions fitting into what zero emission is going to be doing in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I see very positively on the development that we see on the market. Like I think it's really exciting and fun with all these new technologies and all these new solutions. And just the last year, like with AI and all the possibilities that has sort of opened up, not only to this market, but to any market, basically. I think, I'm happy that we're no exception to all these changes, because there is a huge potential. And as I said in the beginning, the need for these kind of solutions is more higher than ever. So everything we can do within the next couple of years to sort of promote new technologies, new solutions, to help us come to terms with the problem that the situation we've put ourselves in, I think is very welcomed. And in addition to that, I see like the last year and even before that, like years before that, we have seen criticism to the market, like there is a lack of transparency, there is a lack of integrity, and investors aren't really sure what they get and if they can trust sort of the project developers and the resellers and the market as a whole. So that's why I'm very positive to this development also, where you can actually, everything becomes super transparent. Anyone can go in, anyone can follow up, like, is this actually happening? Are people using these stoves? And sort of directly trace it back to the actual climate benefits that these stoves or these trees or whatever it is sort of contribute with, which I think is really great. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think increasing transparency is definitely something that's needed in the carbon market and is really well provided by this project. So I can invite Matthias in now. Actually, here he is. I was just thinking, Matthias, so as Henrik was talking there, he mentioned, they got 2.4 billion people who are still cooking on, a very traditional 3-stone cooking method or using polluting fuels. As you live in Zambia for a large part of the year, do you experience this, and how, what is the kind of changes that clean cooking brings? That, for us, it's a carbon credit. That's just a way to get people to finance it. But how do you see, the actual benefits on the ground for people of being able to use these stoves, that you're distributing and supporting?
Absolutely, Ash. I mean, it's very apparent living in Zambia. You drive through the charcoal markets, and it's, I mean, most of us probably think of charcoal as a very pleasant experience of maybe having a, grill or a braai, as we say in Southern Africa, in the summertime. But people use charcoal for cooking every day, and it takes a long time to start, about 20 minutes. It has a lot of carbon monoxide. It gives people headaches and severe long-term issues. It's also very expensive. It's dirty. Your hands get dirty, your clothes get dirty. The stoves are very hot. Kids can burn themselves. So there's really not much good about charcoal, even in terms of performance. But it's what people have, because in urban, peri-urban areas, you cannot put up a fire with firewood. Firewood is also bulky. So there's a reason why there is a lot of charcoal usage, particularly in urban, peri-urban areas. And if we also go out in the forest, we like to go out for walks in the forest with our dog and so on. And we've seen literally forests disappear in front of our eyes. You hear the axes going, echoing in the forest, and you come back next week, and then suddenly where there was a forest, there is basically like big, 80-year-old hardwood trees have been chopped down, and smoldering piles of charcoal. And people are forced to do this because of, that's the income people have. So it's very apparent also what the solution is. The solution is to provide a new solution, and it has to be cheaper. and better. And this is what we have come to. And I think I'll share my screen now, just so
Excellent.
that I can show a presentation. And also, I want to give you a little bit history and background what led to this, because we've been at this for a long time. I mean, I moved to Zambia about 10 years ago with my co-founder, Marian Peterson. And we have in a very focused way, been looking at how to replace charcoal with pellets. It started with setting up one of Africa's first biomass pellet factories, using wood from plantations, from pine plantations. So basically offcuts and waste. It also meant being part of developing the stoves further, working with stove manufacturers to make them really, really good. And that took about 5 years. We also came to a point where it was also involved basically working out consumer financing, because a high quality stove cost about $100, and people can't afford that because the main target group is low income people who use charcoal. It's actually charcoal users who are mostly low income, most under poverty line. So we had to develop consumer financing solutions. We quickly got into mobile money, which is electronic payments. And that was a big game changer for us, because suddenly everything was traceable and electronic. We knew exactly who paid what. And also there was a point in about 2017 when we had like a moment of crisis, because we realized that we were selling quite a lot of stoves, but we were selling them to the wrong people. Let's say a banker who has another cooking solution, and he uses the stove when there is so-called load shedding, when the electricity is out, because he had access to electricity. So we didn't sell a lot of pellets, and the moment of crisis was like, and we knew we had to rethink. So rather than kind of giving up and saying that people don't want pellets, we realized we have to find a way to reach the low-income people who use a lot of charcoal, about 800 kilos per year. And that involved developing a so-called pay-as-you-go solution. And also we embarked on a journey to connect the stoves to internet, and also develop a whole IoT platform, Internet of Things platform. That took about 3 years, and we launched that in the 2021 or so. And we collect impersonal data, so like basically seeing how much pellets people buy and how much the stoves are used. And we set up a call center. We have lots of IT systems managing this. So we are really developing a cooking as a service concept, where we don't even sell the stoves. We lend them to people for free, as long as they buy a minimum amount of pellets, and they can leave at any time. They have to hand in the stove then. And in case some rare person is not using it, it means we got the wrong customer. We take the stove back, refurbish it, and put it back in. So we have very low level of losses, you know, the occasional someone moving out and not telling us, and so on. We've also developed a lot on the distribution side. So we do electronic bike or e-bike home delivery now. People pay with mobile money. It goes into an app, and we deliver to their house. And we really bend over backwards to service our customers, because our business is selling pellets. And our goal is that the carbon credits finance the stove, so we don't have to take the cost, and that people can use it for free. And that's a very scalable model. We have decent margins on the pellets, but we need more volume. But it's also highly additional with carbon credits, because frankly, without carbon credits, there is very little hope for clean cooking to take off, apart from the upper income levels that can afford it. So it's absolutely essential with carbon financing. And cooking is kind of at the center of the household, because everyone cooks. And it's also an activity that people do for many hours per day. So saving time is absolutely crucial and very valuable, because people are often working very hard, long hours. They have a lot of chores. And instead of lighting a charcoal fire every time for 20 minutes and also having a slow cooking with charcoal, the biomass gasification stoves are much faster. And just to give you a sense, to dive a little bit into the technical, 1 kilo pellets is over 4 kilowatt hours of energy. It's a huge amount of energy. and more than half of that goes into the pot. So it's a very powerful medium. It's very clean. And this little stove you see is connected to internet. You can regulate the flame. It has a built-in fan powered by a battery, which is charged either by solar or wall plug or a USB bank if they have. And the reason why we choose pellets, very deliberately, about 10, 12 years ago, we really analyzed and thought, what is the cheapest high quality way of switching people away from charcoal? Not using less charcoal, not more efficient charcoal stoves, but taking the leap to new clean fuel, because that's what is needed to provide healthy cooking. And we came to that pellets was the best way because they can be produced relatively inexpensively compared to charcoal, and we can sell them at a lower cost than charcoal, which we do, and people save about 40% compared to charcoal. So it's a fantastic offer. The market is wide open, and it's all about financing the stoves. So our customers is typically low income, most below the poverty line, living in peri-urban areas in Zambia. We also work in Malawi. And our offer is really fantastic if we can finance the stove. It's we lend it out as a service. We provide a cooking service, and people just have to buy pellets. And the pellets only work in the stove or in similar stoves, and you cannot use other fuels in the stove. And it has a lot of other co-benefits. Of course, health is the big one, also time saving, and so on. And now to ICSO. And by the way, Alvin, who is one of the core members from ICSO, is on the Q&A chat, so he will be able to answer while we're talking. So ICSO is the one who's developed the digital MRV platform. And we partnered about 2.5 years ago because we really shared the same vision. On the one hand, us being distributors and producers of cooking technologies, and ICSO being a market leader in developing digital MRV solutions using blockchain as a transparent medium. It's a fantastic medium. It's basically a database that is immutable. It's fully transparent. And also it allows for so-called smart contracts that you can basically program how things should work. For example, how a certain, for example, carbon finance, how it's distributed throughout the value chain, that could be programmed and set kind of in stone. And ICSO has spent a tremendous amount of time, I would guess way more than 10,000 hours on this. It's been a 2-year journey. The platform was released in July very successfully. It's been running very, very well. And it's basically out there generating. It's one of the very, very first actual digital MRV platforms that is actually working out now. It's definitely a first mover in this, and the vision is very big. On Gold Standard, I should say that we have registered a program with Gold Standard using the metered and measured methodology. It was a 2-year journey, lots of interaction and calculations and everything, particularly for baseline and measuring stove efficiency and many other aspects. And that was fully registered recently and has given us the values that we are then using or borrowing for the other part of the process, which is the MR&V, which stands for measurement, reporting, and verification. So, and I think it's fair and objective to say that the traditional registers are not yet ready for digital MRV. I stand to be corrected, but I don't think it is fully operational yet. And we wanted to leapfrog this, and that's why we want to use ICSO's platform. And it is basically taking the data that we are sending to it, and the main data is the fuel purchase record. It's proof that a certain fuel purchase, pellet purchase, is associated with a stove, and that gives us with a very high confidence that it was also used. And so that's verified by a nonprofit in Germany, in Berlin, called Prospect, under the Access to Energy Institute. And on top of that, for the stoves that are connected to internet, Not all of them are, but if they are, we also run, ICSO also runs another verification, which is a company in France called Scalnix, using causal AI. It's a white box model, and that gives another level of verification. So it actually, I would say, it goes beyond the gold standard measured and metered. I think it's fair to say, because we do, for many of the credits, we do another step. We very much aligned with Article 6.2, under the Paris Agreement. This is the type of technology I believe would be very, very useful, because it has so much data, and it has so much high level of proof of the usage. Because to go back to the Berkeley study that Henrik mentioned, one of the main criticisms in general was that how can we be sure that the stove was used? And we have very high level of proof for that. And in fact, if a stove registers 0 fuel cells, we actually get 0 carbon credits exactly. I would also say that by using the metered and measured, we probably get about half as many carbon. This is a little bit speculative, but I would say that we get significantly less than if we had asked people how much they use the stove, and if they had responded that they use it fully. Or to qualify my statement, it is not giving more carbon credits by metering and measuring. If anything, it gives you less. Here you see screenshot from the dashboard. So everything is traceable from the moment of cooking or buying the pellets to the actual certificate, and everything in between. You can actually unpack a single kg of CO2 equivalent. You can unpack it into what actually created that. So all of these light blue things here are actually links, and you can open up and scroll down and go into an enormous amount of detail. It's also very granular. So in terms of use cases, so the first and most obvious use case is simply offsetting with carbon tokens, as they are called on the ICSO chain. So 1 carbon is 1 kg. And then you get a certificate. And that takes them out of circulation. The transaction is imprinted on the blockchain, is immutable, cannot be changed. So that's the most obvious and easy use case. But ICSO has also created what they call digital twins, the kind of branded nifties. And it's essentially a digital copy of the stove on the blockchain that is live. So when someone is cooking, the owner of the nifty will also see how it is used. And most importantly, that will, once the verification is done, which is regular, we are about weekly now, we could potentially get down to daily or even faster, then the carbon credits can be brought into the kind of Nifty app, and then they can be retired and offset. So that's what's interesting about that is it's actually like we have, for example, one company wanted to make a travel, and they bought a number of Nifties, and they are now generating carbon credits as we speak, and that will be enough for the travel to offset. So it's really like owning a impact generating asset. It's like a future generation of carbon. So it's a different way than having the carbon credits that are already issued. And there is a dashboard for it where you can manage a whole portfolio of stoves and eventually also other, impact generating assets. And one that we haven't come to, but maybe someone will pick up on this. I think it's an extremely interesting use case, is micro offsetting. So here is a generic product, let's say milk package, or it could be anything. And there is a unique QR code on every single one. When you scan the QR code, I can actually click it here, see what happens. This is, of course, a test. But so here we come to certificate, and you can scroll down into exactly how that credit was generated. And you see all of these are actual links, and you can scroll down, see how, when, where, everything. So that's another use case. So you buy a cup of coffee, 1 kg or whatever it might be of carbon is offset, and the user or buyer of the coffee can see it in with a lot of, and of course the privacy concerns, but providing that the person has agreed, and many don't, but we ask them if they want to sign a waiver, then we could also even show the picture of the family to the person who uses the code. So I think I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you very much, Matthias, for going through that. Super interesting. We've had a few questions in the chat, particularly about the fuel source and how it's used. But I'm just thinking, first of all, the way you described it in the DMRV system. I mean, I've been reading about this project for the last 4 months, but just this morning, I've thought what you've made is kind of what the satellite imagery is for the nature-based solutions of the DMRV system. What you've made here is kind of that same, digital measuring solution that can be used for cook stove projects as well. So I think just how you can really improve the accuracy, where previous methods have been based a lot around assumption, and this is really being based around the real data and the real purchase of the pellets and the real use of the pellets to compare to a really accurate baseline. So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting project. And I mean, you won the Digital Innovation Challenge from the UN last year, which is great that it's there is backing from the UN around this, that some of what you talk about around blockchain can be quite intimidating, can be quite scary. It's a big leap, but really, really interesting. So I just mentioned a few questions that we've had coming in the chat, mostly around the use of the stoves and the pellets. So I'll put them to you all together and sort of let you go on those. So one, what are the pellets made of and who makes them? Secondly, how do the stoves and the pellets deal with if it's like raining and you have humid conditions? And then also if you could elaborate a bit about how the stoves can work without internet, and is it possible to use other types of fuel source in there?
Yeah, these are great questions. So the humidity is not an issue. They're actually quite resistant. They would absorb a bit in the rainy season, but it's important how you store them. But we haven't had any issues with that. Pellets is actually very good product to to handle, to store, to it's a really great medium, and it's so much less bulky than other biomass, whether it's would have been firewood or chips or anything. So it's a very appropriate medium for, and a very high energy density of that. And the raw material is various waste streams from forestry plantations, from state-owned forestry plantations. And they actually have pine mostly, and to some extent also eucalyptus plantations. So we source various rejects, like offcuts from the sawmills, sometimes sawdust, but also like, thin boards that are not used for anything, or the thin branches. So we really like cleaning up in a way. Typically, they would burn it in the forest. They make big piles of the branches and burn it before they replant. So it's managed resources. In the future, we could see there's a lot of promise on Napier grass. It's a very fast-growing, very thick grass, like a sugar cane. And we have a whole plan for the future. But right now, we're using the waste from the forestry industry. And I also see how they are created. So basically, we chip the branches, we hammer mill them, and we press them and then cool them and bag them and so on. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to do pellets in Africa. For example, electricity is not as reliable, and a lot of power cuts sometimes. But we've done it now for 10 years. I would say that we have a very good traction with it, and we have excess capacity now in the factory, so we can grow a lot. And I see there's a question here on, are the 100% of the stoves in the project connected? So yeah, on the internet connection, so it's actually not necessary to have them internet connected. For the gold standard metered methodology, it's either metered or measured. We only have to provide proof of the pellet purchase. And that's actually the best data, because it means someone paid money for pellets, and it can be verified with the mobile money bank by a third party. So that's absolutely the best data, and it's the strongest kind of proof or proxy for usage. So the internet connection is used as another level, and if they don't have access to a mobile network, we don't have to install that, and also in the future we don't necessarily have to connect everything. It's very useful now to also help to manage the stoves, the assets. For example, we can see if the batteries are running a bit low or losing their power. We can actually proactively go and replace them, and so on. But it's not necessary to grow. And you're also saying, how do you deliver the pellets affordably? And in rural areas, so we are not focusing on rural areas now. We're focusing on so-called peri-urban areas. So and we concentrate in certain areas. So the delivery radius is from the kind of warehouse is just a few kilometers. And these electric three-wheelers, they can take like 300 to 400 kilos in the back. They are really good and really cost-effective. So we found a really cost-effective last-mile delivery mechanism. We also work with agents. So in some areas, people who live around an agent, they can, walk across the street and collect a bag from the agent. So we're still experimenting a bit, but we have two very good last-mile distribution mechanisms.
Thanks very much, Matthias, and thanks for going through the questions that are kind of flying in. I think that we've covered most of them now. I'd just like to invite back Henrik as well. He's there, he is, and he's gone again. There he is. Yeah, do you have any questions or comments or thoughts about the details of the project, and then how these stoves are made, they're distributed, the impact that it can have, and then the importance, particularly I think around where carbon credits fit in. So the question that's just coming from Paul around delivering the pellets affordably. So how do you see the role of zero emission and carbon credits that make sure that this isn't just, as Matthias said at the start, it shouldn't just be a technology for the already wealthy in the areas, it needs to really reach the poorest people.
But I think this is definitely a collaboration. I mean, Matthias, they have the full knowledge of how things work. He lived in Zambia for over 10 years. So it feels like we're in good hands of how things are managed on the ground. But then, of course, we also, as you know, Ash, we do our best with the due diligence and try to go and visit all the projects that we work with as well, to make sure that things are working as they say in the projects that they are. But I do see our role as a reseller and like doing this partnership with Emerging Echo is super important, because we have the knowledge of the market here in Sweden, and sort of what the customer side, like whatever investors, what they want and asks for when it comes to transparency, when it comes to sort of proofs of the climate benefits that they're purchasing. So I think we have a big role to play when it comes to sort of educating the market and like meeting the expectations between the buyer and in this case sort of the project developer, which is Matthias' side, in a good way.
Excellent, that's great to hear, and I think it's really interesting to focus on partnership, that to get any of these projects off the ground, to get what I see as a key purpose of zero emission, and my role is getting finance from the global north to the global south where it's most needed, and that's done with partnerships like this, which is maybe a nice way to end. We've got 1 minute to go, so I would just really like to thank Matthias for coming to join us, and Henrik as well, and for everyone who's come along and got up maybe a bit early today to join this webinar. Thank you. I understand there'll probably be quite a lot of questions. This is quite a complex project, and we've done our best to get through everything that's come up in the Q&A. But if and when you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Henrik, anyone at the Zero Emission team, and we're happy to speak more about the details of the project, how you can get involved. And yeah, thanks very much for your time, everyone. Have a great day, and we hope to be in contact soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.